I woke up at 6 a.m. this morning in Clear Springs, Maryland on my way to Fairfax, Virginia. Amidst my hotel breakfast and suitcase packing, I went on Twitter to find that yet again, someone has called me out and asked me to condemn someone else's behavior. This is something I encounter a lot, and it usually plays out like this. Someone doesn't like the behavior of somebody else. Let's call that somebody person A. Instead of responding to person A's thoughts directly, they instead take person A's thoughts to person B, who is someone who they perceive as an ally or a friend of person A. They highlight the behavior and they ask person B to condemn their friend for what they're seeing or doing. This is the worst of call-out culture. I get this a lot because I've built friends on both sides of our current identity politics divide. Some people find my relationships with individuals whom they find to be problematic highly unpalatable, and they end up taking these things to me looking for me to condemn them. Now, note specifically what's going on here. People are not concerned with my behavior. People are concerned with someone else's behavior. My crime is not something that I did or said per se. It is purely my alignment with someone who they find objectionable. I think people think this puts me in a catch-22 because for these individuals, they always achieve moral superiority by canceling anybody who they disagree with. It's almost as if these individuals cannot possibly conceive of how I could behave any other way, and if I am not willing to cancel someone, then I must implicitly agree with everything that they have ever said. Just doing a quick sound check to make sure everything's still good. Now, in this morning's incident, the people I was asked to condemn are not even people who are within my social circle. I've never met them or talked to them in my life. Regardless, I on principle do not respond to the condemnation of others on demand, even if I do find the behavior to be unacceptable. And that is because I refuse to engage in what has become known as moral outrage porn. Moral outrage porn is a term I first saw utilized by Cethi Nugent, and I think it does a wonderful job of explaining what we are currently seeing on social media. It describes the trend of engaging in moral outrage for pleasure, i.e. porn, rather than to achieve an actual utility or improvement. You see, moral outrage is a natural and important human response. It's meant to spur action and cause us to bring about positive change. You witness something immoral, it outrages you, and then that outrage is supposed to motivate you to improve things. It becomes moral outrage porn, however, when this response is hijacked, and rather than causing actual change, we utilize it to feel morally superior and righteousness while doing nothing. Do you see the connection to the term porn now? As Tim Kreider said in the New York Times in 2009 when speaking about moral outrage porn, it sometimes seems as if most of the news is selected specifically to pander to our impulses to judge and punish and get us all riled up with righteous indignation. In 2023, I think we'd have to agree that that's most of what we engage with on social media. For myself, when I end up morally outraged, I try my very best to direct this towards real-world improvement. And let's be honest with ourselves, if we're going to have any real-world improvement, that is not going to happen on Twitter. Hearts do not change by being shamed. A call-out on Twitter is really only experienced by the base of the individual doing the call-out, and they're already in agreement. It causes more division, more outrage, more filter bubbles, and does nothing to actually change the quality of our discourse. So do you know what I do instead of condemnation? I look for opportunities to build relationships with people and I invite them to coffee chats. I look for the areas where we agree and can work together. I look for common ground. I do this because a relationship is essential before getting someone's trust and respect, and those are essential prerequisites before anyone is ever going to have my ear on anything. Even if I did choose to call someone out on Twitter, why would they ever listen to me if we didn't already have a relationship? If I haven't yet gained their respect, then I will have no authority in their eyes to speak to anything in their life, and they're not going to listen to me. I am simply filling people's feeds with an ever larger pile of outrage porn that others will use to continue to build their own righteous indignation. And I would be posturing to morally elevate myself above others. Here's an example of how this plays out. If somebody posts on Twitter that all transgender women are opinionated, angry narcissists who are out to erase biological women, I'm almost certainly not going to argue with them on that post. Instead, I will engage with them to prove that this isn't true, or at least not universally true. It would be easier to just yell at them on Twitter, which, by the way, will just prove to them that transgender women are loud, angry narcissists. What's far more rewarding is to invest in a relationship where over time those assumptions can be challenged. And the beauty is that when you do this, you almost never need to challenge someone in words because over time the relationship itself does the heavy lifting. I get the benefit of a new friend and my friend gets the benefit of a new and refined worldview. This is reciprocal, and I'll almost certainly expand my worldview as I come to know them better as well. What I find truly ironic is that this exact behavior of building relationships is what people are going after me for on Twitter. To them, as this afternoon's Twitter chains made clear, I am simply engaging with Nazis. Now, as already mentioned, I have not even met the individuals who I was asked to condemn on Twitter today. But if I had, and if I did have a concern, I would absolutely handle that in private and not through public condemnation on Twitter. That's how I do life. And I get that that's foreign to the unfortunate souls who spend all of their time being morally indignant on Twitter. One more thing I do want to address. It was pointed out to me this afternoon that I have on occasion retweeted other people on Twitter whom I disagree with. It was raised that this could be considered a form of a call-out. It's not that demanding someone else to condemn an individual that I'm tired talking about in this video, but I do see your point. When I've done this, my intention has been to temper strong language and division by showing an alternative posture. In the example raised from last night, an individual, whom by the way I have invited to coffee 6 times and they've either declined or completely ignored me, had chosen to characterize all supporters of a major political party as abusers, homophobes, racists, and people who hate and hurt others with smiles on their faces. Since relationships are mutual and this individual has made it very clear that they do not want one with me, I chose to use this as an example of how we can tone down our language and not have such divisive communication. The comments on my tweet highlight the understanding I was hoping to convey, that unity and tempered interactions are so much better than charged rhetoric. I am nonetheless reconsidering whether or not my retweet was helpful or not, because I also do see how it itself has also created more division. Today, the individual who I retweeted labeled me a homophobic white supremacist, which is an escalation from the kind of language that they've used towards me prior. I'm not going to pretend that I have answers to this, and I really do appreciate you actually holding me accountable for something that I have done. I'm going to give this more thought and continue to reflect on it. So, in summary, I decline your invitation to condemn out this activity. If you choose to interpret this as acceptance of their behavior, then you do so in bad faith, because I've already explained to you that I will never respond to any demand to condemn someone else's behavior. And one last note based on the comments I saw today. If I did encounter a literal Nazi, which by the way has never happened, I would gladly go out to coffee with them. Perhaps I will have been the first transgender individual to ever give them an authentic engagement. And wouldn't that be wonderful if I could make a positive impact? So side note, I'm currently on George Mason University's campus in Virginia, and I just came across the coolest thing I have ever seen. Look at these food delivery robots. They're everywhere.